Well, the U.S. is constructing a missile defense system across the Persian Gulf. American officials claim it's to guard against a possible attack from Iran. We have to remember that Washington recently boosted sales of detection systems and missile batteries to its allies in the region, such as Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, as well as Saudi Arabia. Critics of the move, however, say the U.S. is saber-rattling in response to Iran's defiance over its nuclear program. Well, to help us make sense of all this, I'm joined now live with Soraya Sepahpour-Ulrich. She's an independent researcher and writer. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you on. Now, what I really want to know here, we're hearing the U.S. talking about this missile defense plan as sort of a deterrence, a potential threat from Iran. But what's really behind this? Is Iran really posing some sort of a threat to the U.S. here?
Hi, good to be with you. It's very doubtful that the intention is to deflect any possible potential threat from Iran. I think that if Iran did ever want to retaliate, it would not attack. If it wanted to retaliate to an attack, the simplest thing and the best thing for it to do, and many experts have shared this opinion, is to close the Strait of Hormuz. And that would affect the whole world, not just the neighboring Arab countries. So I doubt very much if that's in response to a potential Iranian threat. And many experts are also of the opinion that the missile shield it doesn't work. It's basically a scientific pursuit of something that is not going to help at all. So if they want to, if America is recycling the petrodollars and selling them the missile shields, then that's not the only thing it's recycling, because America has typically wanted to have its bases not only in the region but around the world. During the Cold War, America made the Soviet invasion a reason, an excuse to get the Persian Gulf states to cooperate with it. But in reality, at that time, Jimmy Carter's defense secretary, Harold Brown, had indicated that what they're really afraid of is an uncontrolled turbulence in the region.
Well, if we're talking about, and I'm sorry to interrupt you there, if we're talking about the region, I actually want to pull up a map that we have. I know you can't see it, but for our viewers, sort of showing the expansion of both various bases as well as some of the defensive areas there. And you really sort of see the Persian Gulf area effectively enclosed by the U.S. So if Iran isn't really the actual threat that's giving birth to the system, as you say, what is the motivation by the U.S.?
Well, I think I would go to America's global posture review, and that was during the Bush era, which has been continued. And America believes in realigning its forces to better control and dominate the world. And I think that perhaps, and it needs the cooperation of the countries involved. And I think that Iran being made into a threat has allowed the Arab countries to cooperate with America because really they rely on America for their internal securities. And which actually is an important point here, because the internal securities of some of these countries are now in jeopardy. And with every base that America creates, with every missile defense shield or Patriot missile, everything that it exports to any given country, it has personnel going with it. So one has to question whether these are to calm down the potential threats that might arise in countries that have always supplied America with the oil it needed and the soldiers, or whether it's actually for a wider purpose.
Well, and I really want to bring up, I mean, you bring up these other countries, for example, we're talking about Qatar, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, we're talking about Bahrain. If we're talking about the issue of democracy, these aren't necessarily the best examples of democratic rule, and yet democracy is often the sort of rhetoric that comes out of the U.S. in relation to Iran. So is there an issue of hypocrisy there, perhaps, where we're working with certain countries that suit our suit the U.S. needs and not others when it doesn't?
Absolutely. I personally believe that a lot of these agitations we see in the region, the so-called Arab Spring, it was initiated by the United States and all the NGOs. But I think at some point they lost control. They believed in the controlled chaos, and they believed they could control the outcome. Now that's not so clear. And aside from that, other countries that are allies are catching on to this spring, so-called spring. And there's unrest in Saudi Arabia, there's unrest in Bahrain, there's unrest in Jordan, and all these are, these countries, these bases are instrumental to America's push for global domination, as well as the oil wealth that is there.
Well, push for global domination. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but Soraya Sepahpour-Ulrich, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.